Purrely Noir is the payoff to playing the Purrely deck, which I will refer to as Big Noir for the remainder of this video. Big Noir is a dark, fairy, rank 7 monster with 1100 attack and 2800 defense with the following summoning condition and effect. It can be summoned using 2 level 7 monsters, but you can also exceed summon Big Noir by using a rank 2 monster you control with 5 or more materials, and if you do, transfer its materials to Big Noir. Usually this will be a Purrely Plump, but can also be something like Ghostrick So Cute Boss. This card is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects while it has 5 or more materials. You can detach 2 materials from this card, then target one card your opponent controls or in their graveyard. Place it on the bottom of the deck. This is a quick effect if this card has a level 1 Purrely monster attached to it as an Xyz material. 1. The first set of tips are on common misplays to look out for when using Noir yourself, or that you should hope your opponent will make while playing Noir against you. Firstly, if they use the effect to shuffle back a card and detach the Purrely or Purrely attached to Big Noir, it will no longer have a quick effect, so make sure they don't try to shuffle back again when they cannot legally do so. Noir is often summoned by the effect of Purrelyeap, a normal trap card with the following effect. Target one Purrely Xyz monster you control. Special summon from your extra deck one Purrely Xyz monster with a different rank by using that target as material, but return it to the extra deck during the end phase of the next turn. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target up to 3 Purrely monsters in your graveyard. Shuffle them into the deck. You can only activate one Purrelyeap per turn. Some players will forget if they summon Noir with Yeap, and may let it accidentally return to the extra deck, so look to ensure its return during the end phase to maintain the game state. When players do remember the effect, they'll often overlay their Big Noir for a downard, or just straight into Zeus, or they may also intentionally allow their Big Noir to be shuffled back into the extra deck so they can use it again. If you expect your opponent is going to use Yeap to rank up, either because they ended on a different Purrely Xyz, or if they set Yeap off of Little Noir, you can try to counter Yeap with a Book of Moon or Eclipse, as you can't Xyz summon on a face-down monster. You can also try to prevent Little Noir from ever setting Yeap by chaining cards to every quick play spell they use as they try to set it, as it must be used in response their own quick play and priority will pass to you before they can do so. 2. The next set of tips are regarding 3 types of cards and effects that can actually be useful against Big Noir. While Big Noir is unaffected by activated effects, while it has 5 or more materials, some cards that activate can still affect Big Noir. It's still affected by both activated effects that resolve at some other point in the turn, such as the full field destruction effect of Mirror Jade the Ice Blade Dragon. Other card effects that linger after activation, such as using Called by the Grave on another copy of Noir, would also affect and negate it. And cards that apply continuously after they resolve, such as Snatch Steel and Phantom Knight Fogblade, would also work against Noir. Although neither are great cards to use against Noir, as they can simply be shuffled to the bottom of the deck, if they don't know how it works and let it resolve as a misplay. Big Noir also is weak against cards that don't technically affect it. Rescue Ace Impulse has the following effect. During your main phase, you can choose the one effect monster your opponent controls with the highest attack, and if that's a tie you can choose which monster, and neither player can activate that monster's effects on the field this turn. This effect can prevent Big Noir from being used later in the turn because the effect applies to the player's ability to use the effect of Noir, not the Noir itself. Noir is also weak to cards that force a player to take an action such as Herald of the Abyss, which is a normal spell with the following effect. Pay 1500 life points and declare one monster type and attribute. Your opponent must send one face-up monster with a declared type and attribute from their field to the graveyard if possible. For the rest of this turn, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with that sent monster's name. You can only activate one Herald of the Abyss per turn. This card makes a player take an action, and you physically picking up your card and putting it in the graveyard by the effect is considered a player action and not an effect. This means it also plays around both Purrely Street and My Friend Purrely, which both have trigger effects that go off when a Purrely Xyz leaves by the effect of an opponent's card. Herald of the Abyss is an excellent thrust target in the Purrely matchup going second, but can be beat by simply setting up Purrely Quick Play spell. They can chain it to summon a Purrely from the deck, which is also a dark fairy, and can choose to send it to the graveyard in place of Noir. Destructive Duruma Karma Cannon is also good against Noir. It's a normal trap card with the following effect. Change as many monsters on the field as possible to face-down defense position. Then, if either player controls a face-up monster, they must send all face-up monsters they control to the graveyard. Since Noir is unaffected by the part of the card that would allow it to be set, it will then be forced to be sent to the graveyard by the second half of the effect, which is a player action. If they want to, they can just use Noir until it is affected, so it will remain set and avoid getting sent to the graveyard. That way, if it is removed by battle, it will be flipped face-up so it can trigger both my friend and Street. It's not the worst thrust target to play against Purrely, although Dimensional Barrier is a safer bet. Lastly, Noir's effect can be changed into another effect, such as by Grapha, Dragon Overlord of Dark World, as Grapha would affect Noir effect, and not Noir itself. The last tip on cards that deal with Noir are Kaijus as well as Kurikara Divancarnate. The abilities of Kaiju's, Santa Claus, Lava Golem, or Sphere mode to be summoned are not activated effects, and can be used against Noir. Most of these cards will be live depending on the number of monsters your opponent has, and Divincarnate can also be searched off of Snake Eye Ash that can be summoned by the original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye, and is likely to be live as most Purrely players will try to get a draw off of their Sleepy effect. The problem with all of these cards is they all will trigger my friend and Street. 3. Next is a tip that might not be obvious. Noir's effect when used on a set card that is chained, assuming it would go to the graveyard when it resolves, will not be shuffled into the deck. So if Noir targets a Big Welcome Labyrinth, and it's chained, it will go to the graveyard when it resolves. Noir will then be able to shuffle it back from the graveyard, but it will require extra activations of its effect. This is because of an old ruling involving Giant Trunade that says cards that would go to the graveyard when they resolve cannot be returned to the hand or deck by a card effect, and will go to graveyard at the end of the chain. 4. The next set of tips are regarding the deck's spell cards. They all discard for effect and can be used to trigger the effects of Dark World and Shadow monsters. Because they all have the ability to summon from the deck, you can respond to all of them with Ash Blossom, but in that scenario they will not have to discard, and none of them are once per turn, so timing an Ash against a quick play is tough, and may be better used on something like my friend, which is a hard once per turn, and is often the search off of Lilly. They can also be used in the draw phase to delay draw from being used when you add off Purrely or Lilly. The extra effects given to the Xyz are also not once per turn. So an Xyz with 2 Sleepy can activate the effect to draw twice, with 2 Happy will be able to attack twice on monsters, with 3 Pretty will be able to attach 3 of your opponent's cards to it, although it can never be used against a token because they cannot be Xyz material. You can also use Yeep to use each effect multiple times on the card it was originally on, and on the monster you rank up into as well. Due to the latest ban list update, Delicious and Sleepy are both not at 3 and cannot definitively be searched off my friend, but one can be guaranteed, just not which of the two. Sleepy and Pretty Memory are the only ones that can be used on an empty board, because they gain both players' life points and reduce the next damage you take to 0. Delicious requires there to be a monster on the field as it prevents destruction by battle, and Happy requires any other card as it protects a card, and can be a random way to mess with the plays of an unchained deck trying to destroy their own cards. Street can be used to attach material during the end phase from the deck or the graveyard, so often they'll attach from grave when possible to ensure there are still targets in deck to hit off of Purrely. Street also prevents targeting on your monster's special summon that turn, although bad players may not realize you can still target the ones that are normal summoned. Street's effect to summon when your Xyz leaves the field by an opponent's card is mandatory, and cannot be used to chain block my friend from Bell, although both cards are weak to Bell. 5. The last tips are on the monsters. Lilly's effects are both once per turn, so if you can only stop one Cat Lily is the choice, as Purrely's effects are only soft once per turn. Purrely's rank up requires a card in hand, and Lily's requires a card in the graveyard, and can be stopped with a Diddy Crow on its target. Both can only rank up into the Xyz with the corresponding memory listed on it, so Pretty makes Beauty, Delicious makes Plump, Sleepy makes Noir, and Happy makes Happiness and gain extra or bonus effects when they have their own memory under them. Beauty is a Veiler, and is a quick effect with Pretty. Plump is a double spell or trap attacher from the graveyard, and is a quick effect with Delicious. Noir can discard a card to bounce a spell trap, and can do 2 instead if it has Sleepy attached. And Happiness can search for a Purrely card after damage calculation, even if destroyed or banished by the battle, and with Happy attached, it can have a monster's attack. The rank 2s all can up to 3 times per turn can respond to a quick play memory and attach it to itself as material, and when they do they can do something extra. Little Noir can set a trap, Plump can banish a monster until the end phase. Happiness can bounce a spell or trap, which doesn't target, and Beauty can change the battle position of a monster without targeting it. All of these effects can be chain blocked if you have cards to activate, so consider holding quick effects to stop them from activating. If you found this video useful, subscribe and check out my 5 tips on Orcust video right here.